found a middle ground here that might work in a fall campaign. Mike Huckabee joins us right now. Governor, it is odd when I look at, and Lou pointed out in New York, we're seeing signs of it in Connecticut and some of these other states. By the way, the ocean state of Rhode Island has just gone for Donald Trump. All right, so that is the fourth state he's picked up tonight. We'll just wait on Delaware, I believe that, and if he just completes the sweep. But, Governor, I apologize. On to that notion of what Republicans do to answer this cynicism that's out there, even among Republican voters, about Wall Street. What do you think?
Well, let's look at an example. This past week, Jamie Dimon came out. He got a huge salary, a big bonus. His company got bailed out in the big government bailout. But you know what his suggestion was? His suggestion was to make sure that we go out and cut Social Security benefits. Now, just think about that in context. You want to know why people in America are angry at Wall Street? It's nonsense like that. When a person is trying to figure out how they're going to make it, and somebody who is making tens of millions is suggesting we cut Social Security. The bailouts went to the top of the food chain, and the folks at the bottom got the shaft, and it's just as clear as that.
Well, to be fair, he was talking in the aggregate, Governor, about entitlements, and that's the only way you're going to get our debt under control. But you're quite right. He did include in that dealing with Social Security. Lou Dobbs, is that a problem for Republicans?
It is a huge problem, and it's one, by the way, I've been talking and writing about for a very long time. We have an inequality of income issue in this country, a great divide that has worsened since the 70s. The middle class has shrunk by 11% over the course of the last 30 years. Middle class incomes, working men and women in this country, they've had zero wage increases in real terms in the past 30 years. To what the governor is talking about, the Republicans have got to talk honestly about this. And I've got to tell you, without Donald Trump in this debate, this great debate,
don't we have to deal with Social Security? And let's be clear.
No, we do not have to.
Well, here's the thing. Warren Buffett and Lou Dobbs do not deserve a Social Security check. No offense. They don't.
I've got no problem. I personally have no problem with it.
They don't need it.
Social Security is not an entitlement.
This is what I'm saying. And
it's not an entitlement. We shouldn't be thinking of it in those terms.
When we look at stuff that could make the country bankrupt in the future, Social Security is one of those things where the costs are greater than the amount of money that's going to be put in.
And
it's a Ponzi scheme. And rich people, and I think this is what Johnny... Yeah. That means there's less, Charlie, less money.
What you're saying is paying in than are drawing from it.
We're going to lose Governor Huckabee. I don't want to do that. Governor, you don't agree with that. Early on in the campaign, I remember when you were in the race and Chris Christie was in the race, Christie went out on that third rail and said, we have to recognize Social Security for what it is, something that is not sustainable at the rate it's going. You argued with that, and you still do. Why? Delaware,
well, number
we
one
can't
is
claim
because
Delaware
Social Security is not an entitlement. Social Security is an earned benefit.
Yes,
it's not the government's money. People paid that money in through their whole lives, and they didn't do it voluntarily. This was not some fund that they got to contribute to if they wanted to. The government took it out of their paychecks at times in their lives when they really could have used that cash. Now, here's the point. You say, well, rich people shouldn't collect it. Well, then why should rich people get interest on their earnings? They don't need that either. Why should rich people get dividends? They probably don't need that either. The point is, it's not the government's job to take away money that belongs to somebody else. And by the way, when I hear people say, this will bankrupt us, there's a way to fix this. 4% economic growth, we fully fund Social Security. This is not an issue of Social Security costing too much. It's an issue of our economy being too weak and too anemic.
What do you think?
Fix
That's going to be defining issue,
Social Security.
Growth is the most important thing that we need in America. If we can get 4, even 5% growth, the way we did back in the 1980s by cutting individual tax rates and corporate tax rates, give me 4% growth, and I'll give you a partial solution to some of the problems which our nation faces.
But the problem with that is
we have 4% growth.
The problem with that is, and it's not a hypothetical, is in 2001 and 2003, George W. Bush did as he promised and cut taxes, and did so significantly. The result was one of the most anemic periods of job creation this this country's history. We've got to go beyond the reflexive ideological, mantras.
Right.
We've got to look honestly at the consequences of public policy and business practices on our middle class.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. What we can say now for Donald Trump, all but Delaware in his column right now. So we're going to be keeping a very close eye on this. He might sweep all 5 states. Of those 118 delegates that are the serious ones up for grabs tonight, I'm just looking at this ratio in some of these states, 55 to 60%. That could guarantee him as many as 100 delegates tonight. More to this.